Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going through my round 21 AFL tips and predictions, but first as always let's see how we did in round 20. So in round 20, I ended up having another pretty decent round. I ended up getting the 8 out of 9 tips. So we'll go see what I got correct and incorrect. So I got the Hawthorn tip correct. That one was a pretty simple game despite Sam Doherty's retirement. The Blues couldn't get up. Got the Bulldogs tip correct. That was a thrashing as anyone could see. 93 points there. Too easy for the Dogs. Got the GWS game correct. Yeah, they were just on fire in that second half. They had that 7-goal stretch and all thanks to some of their star players in the Orange and Army really lifted for the occasion. Then the only one I got incorrect was the Q clash. The Suns ended up getting the absolute thrashing over the lines there. No one really saw that coming, including myself. So, yeah, credit to the Suns there and them looking more likely to make the 8 now with that win. Got the Derby tip correct. It was actually an alright game from West Coast, but it was one of the more probably better derbies, even though it was still 49 points. At least it was a bit more high scoring and a bit more entertaining to watch, I guess you could say, but still an easy win there for Freo. Then I also got the Cats tip correct. Yeah, look, that one was easy, but North, that was really disappointing. You know, they were arguably one of the more disappointing teams of the round up there with the D's in that. For losing by 100, but yeah, the Cats, they were just amazing. Jezza kicked 11, just far too easy for the Cats there. Ended up getting the Adelaide tip correct as well. Yeah, look, they just demolished Port Adelaide, especially in Ken's last showdown. I thought that was really poor the way the Power performed, but credit to the Crows. They're looking like they could honestly finish top 2 if they can just continue to find these absolute insane wins. Got the Collingwood tip correct there. Yeah, look, the Pies were just far too strong over the Tigers on the weekend. And Richmond, it was a pretty classy. It wasn't the worst performance from the Tigers. They could have probably made it a bit closer if they'd have kicked a couple more goals. But yeah, look, Nick Dacos, he was the real standout in that game. I wasn't watching much of that game, but I did go and watch a bit of his highlights. He had a phenomenal game there, and he really made the game more exciting than it was. And then the Saints over the D's, overtaking that 46-coin comeback. I did make a reaction of it short on my YouTube channel, but yeah, look, that was absolutely amazing. I still can't believe that we have the history for the biggest three-quarter time comeback, which was the first time in 30 years, 46 points, a Ross masterclass. It was absolutely insane, and yeah, look, disappointing for the D's being up, but let's go over my tips for next week. So we do start off on the Thursday night under the roof at Marvel, where we do have a pretty interesting clash between two pretty informed teams against the Dogs and the Giants. Now, the Dogs, this is a massive game for them for their sake. You know, they really need to win this game to try and get back in the 8. And if they don't win this game, I'm pretty sure they do have to win all of their games on the run home, which is just going to be tough, and they also need some results to go their way. So if they lose this, they're most likely really not going to make the 8 because of those 2 losses that they have had before the Essendon game. But let's go over the Essendon quickly. Yeah, look, it was just a dominant performance, especially offensively. Far too good for the Bombers. Darcy kicked, I believe, 6 and Norton kicked 5, so they combined for 11 goals. And it was just a dominant display from the Dogs, really. And yeah, look, they never really looked like losing the game from the start. They had that phenomenal start like they did in the previous game earlier in the year against the Bombers. And yeah, they just really beat it up on them, so not much said there. As for the Giants, well, the Orange and Army have won 7 in a row. They are looking really good. 6 in a row. They're looking really good now to make finals, and they really should be making finals, especially if they can win this game. But this is also an important game for them because they wouldn't want to drop this, considering they have won 6 in a row. They're in some good form, and against the Dogs, who they don't actually usually play well against, this obviously is a rivalry, and I think we should be getting a pretty good Thursday night game. The Giants did drop their last one to the Dogs, and it's the only side the Dogs have beaten in the top 8 is the Giants. So can the Dogs repeat it back to back? I'm not sure. I think this is going to be a very good game. I'm not sure if Toby Green should be playing. I'm not sure if he got suspended or something for his comments he did make on Papley at halftime. So that'll be interesting to see. Jake Stringer's also in some really good form for the Giants here. But I'm going to be going with the Giants. I know the Dogs are expected to win this game at home, but I think the Giants, they're going to make it hard for the Dogs to make the 8. I'm going to go the Giants in an upset. I think the Orange and Army's in some really good form. I'm going to go the Giants away from home at Marvel, and I'm going to go the Giants by a pretty comfortable margin by 22 points on the Thursday night. Moving on to the Friday night game now, where we do have the Crows and the Hawks. So finally the fixture has got a bit better, and yeah, look, the AFL is certainly starting to put in some better fixtures coming up in the next few weeks, not just putting Essendon and Carlton on just because they're big clubs, but this is the matches we want to see, and two sides who are in some really good form, especially the Crows now, won 5 on the trot, and yeah, look, they've not only been able to win against sides, they've been able to score heaps against sides and really thrash them. They thrashed heaps of sides like the Suns and the Power at home, and yeah, look, they're just a different breed at home. Thilthorpe's able to kick many goals at home, and against the Power, they just dominated that showdown. I think it was their second biggest win in showdown history, which was really good for their sake, and they really should be finishing top 2 now with the Lions dropping a game where they could have taken first spot if they can continue to find the wins, but look, it's not going to be easy against the Hawks here. Obviously, these two sides did play earlier. It was actually only a few weeks ago where they did play, and the Hawks ended up winning in a scrappy contest by 3 points. So this could honestly go either way. The Crows will be favourites coming into this, but we will get to the Hawks. Now, the Hawks last week, they just did enough against Carlton. I thought that they did take the foot off the gas after the first quarter. They had a really good first quarter, but yeah, look, Carlton, they played with them, but the Hawks, they were always too good. Jack Ginnivan did his celebrations, and yeah, look, it was just far too easy for them against the Blues. So I think they do need to win this game because their season does get really tougher from here, the Hawks. So they want to be winning this game here at the Adelaide Oval. It's going to be really tough against the Crows at home. I think the Crows at home really should be winning this game when you look at it, and I honestly think they will win this game. I think that, overall, I think there's time to get revenge on Hawthorn for that close loss in the year where they really should have won that game, and I think they will be looking to chase that top spot, because I do think they can still get it with Collingwood coming up against Brisbane, which could go either way too. So I'm going to go the Crows here by 7 points at the Adelaide Oval. Next up on the Saturday, we do move on now where we have the D's taking on the Eagles, and we'll start off with the Eagles. Look, in the Derby, I thought they were all right. They had a pretty good start, kicked the first goal of the match, but the Dockers, they were always going to run it over the top of the Eagles, and they probably could have even won by more, the Dockers, and the Eagles could have lost by more. If Frere had have kicked straight, they honestly could have been up by at least 60 at half time, but credit to them. Harley Reid had a pretty decent game, kicking a few goals, but yeah, look, there's not really much to be said there for them. Only one game this season. As for the D's, well, they're arguably the biggest disappointments of the round. The fact that they lost to the Saints up 46 points. Look, as a Saints fan, I'm not really sure how it feels as a Saints fan, obviously, because we did win the match. Still caught up in that win. But, yeah, look, it is disappointing for the D's. And, yeah, look, they just didn't really get their game style right in the last quarter, especially when it came down to those last minutes where that Max Gawn should have been behind the ball in the 6-6 rule. They haven't practiced it, and end of the day, it came back to bite them. It probably would have ended up being a draw if the D's had have, taken some more initiative and been a bit more smart with a couple of their players like Viney, who just didn't make the smartest decisions. But that game is over now, and yeah, look, there is a chance the Eagles could coming in win this, because that's really confidence downing from the D's. They dominated those 3 quarters. They were killing St Kilda, but they just couldn't finish it off in the last, and the Saints just overpowered them. And yeah, look, it was just disappointing, and now it gives the Eagles a really good chance to win this. They did beat the D's last year, obviously, at Optus, and we have seen the Eagles play a couple of good games here at Marvel. We did see them beat the Dogs a couple years ago, so maybe they could pull off a win like that. But regardless, coming into this, I think the D's will be hungry after last week's disappointment, so I think I'm going to be going with the D's here. They should be winning this game comfortably, really, when you do look at it. But I don't think it will be that comfortable, but they did dominate for 3 quarters against the Saints. So if they can just bring that, they shouldn't be able to lose a lead against this, especially against the Eagles. But maybe the Eagles could win this match, but I'm going to go the D's here, just be safe, by 26 points at Marvel. Moving on to People First Stadium, or Metricon, as I do like to call it, we do have the Suns taking on the Tigers. And yeah, look, we'll start off with the Suns. Look, I felt like they were probably the best, arguably the best team of the round. The way that they were just able to execute in front of goal. And really after the first quarter, that's when they pulled away. They had a bit of a shaky start. Brisbane kind of running on top of them, but after those first 10 minutes, they just absolutely dominated the game for 50 minutes. And yeah, look, they really got to work in all areas of the game, and they ended up winning quite comfortably in the end by 11 goals, which was the biggest Q Clash win in history for the Suns. And yeah, look, they definitely were the big brothers in that game, and they really give them a good chance for themselves to make finals now, especially with the game in hand. And it does get quite easier here against the Tigers, who against the Pies were, I guess you could say, all right. They were competitive for the first half, but then Collingwood in that third quarter just had the few more goals edge. Dealey Green was also a big, massive highlight for the Tigers. I think he kicked 2 goals. He was pretty good as well, considering he was playing the number 1 team in the Pies. The Tigers will also be looking to get revenge against their old coach in Dimmer Hardwick here. And we did see the Tigers upset the Suns back at Marvel, but to be fair, that was back at Marvel. And yeah, look, the Tigers are going to have to take the big trip up to the Gold Coast. And I just think the Suns, if they want to be a true contender, which I think they are, they have to win this quite comfortably, and I think they will. I think the Suns will win this pretty easily. I'm going to go the Suns in this one by 49 points at home. We head over to Sydney now at the SCG. We do have the Swans taking on the Bombers in a pretty dead rubber game, considering now that officially both sides' seasons are over. As in the Swans last week, obviously losing to the Giants, they and are mathematically impossible to make the 8, and serves them right probably for the start that they have had to their season, but they are in some pretty decent form, obviously. But against the Giants, against their little brothers, they couldn't stop and they couldn't win their 5th straight derby in a row. Yeah, look, the Giants just really ran over the top of them in that third quarter, and they were the much far better side in that game. And yeah, look, the Swans, they'll be wanting to win this game just for their pride, I guess, but it really doesn't matter in terms of the season. But they also would be wanting to win this game, considering it is against the Bombers, who I believe are on an 8 or 9 game losing streak, something like that. So the Bombers, they're probably due for a win, but just with all their injuries and all their young kids giving them a run, I'm just not sure if they will maybe even find a win for the rest of the season. Who knows? We'll have to see. But yeah, look, I think I'm going to be going with the Swansea, considering this is at home. They really should be winning this game. They did lose to the Bombers earlier on in the season, but those two sides were much different back then. And yeah, look, I think I'm going to be going the Swans here at home. They should be winning this comfortably, and I think they will probably win it comfortably. I'm going to go the Swans to control this game nicely and win it by 44 points. Next game we do have at the G is between Collingwood and Brisbane, in a game which this is a massive game in terms of both sides' seasons. You'd think if the Pies win this, they probably do have top spot locked if the Crows do lose especially, but you know, that top spot is up for grabs. But the Pies, they got back a win. They got back on the winners list on the weekend against the Tigers in a plucky and gutsy win. Yeah, look, some of their veteran stars like Nick Dacos and Josh Dacos really stepped up when they needed to, and yeah, look, Nick Dacos was the highest. That was the highest rated player game of the season from him, so that was just incredible to watch. And yeah, look, the Pies, it wasn't a dominant performance against the Tigers, but they just did enough at the end of the day. And Richmond, they were in some pretty good form, so credit to the Pies there for holding off the Tigers. As for the Lions, well, they were probably the biggest disappointment of the round, considering that a lot of people thought they would be able to beat the Suns out, even though it was away from home. But yeah, look, they just got massively shown up by their little brothers in the Q Clash, and they just couldn't win enough ball, and they just couldn't stop Gold Coast, really. Even though they have had one of the best defences in the league, they gave up 20 goals, 130 points, which we rarely see them do. So I think they need a response here at the G, and they have lost their last 3 against Collingwood. So this is going to be interesting to see if they can hold up against the Heat at the G. So I think this is going to be a really interesting game, but I'm going to go for a few upsets this round. The Pies, I feel like, will be coming off that win against Richmond, but they still aren't in the best form, the Pies. They need to get back into form, and yeah, look, they do have still a couple of outs here, the Pies, so this is going to be interesting. But I'm going to go with the Lions here at the G. I think they've become a really good MCG side. It's going to be tough against the Pies, but I'm going to go the Lions here in another upset. I'm going to say the Lions win this in a really good game of football by 13 points at the MCG. Then on the Sunday, we do move on to a bit more of a dead rubber game, but still a pretty interesting contest between the Saints and North Melbourne. Now, we'll get to North Melbourne firstly. Yeah, look, they were just really disappointing against the Cats. I think we all saw the Cats winning by at least 10 goals, but we weren't expecting a 100-point thrashing. It honestly could have been a 140-point thrashing with how poor they played. You know, they just didn't man up on Jezza that well. They let him they let him free roam around the ground, and yeah, look, they just can never stop these players from kicking goals. Their defense is the worst in the league, and yeah, look, they're averaging like 110 points a game giving up. So yeah, look, it wouldn't surprise me if this is a much more high-scoring game, considering that it is against the Saints and Rosewood, in which recent matchups we have seen have been a pretty poor delivering games. But we'll get to the Saints, and yes, finally we got a win under the roof at Marvel, and I was not expecting that. The Ross masterclass, but it was all thanks to that man, Nazaya Wanganeen-Millera, and yeah, look, I honestly think as a Saints fan, I'm really optimistic. I think he does stay. You know, his celebrations after the game as well, kicking the winner after the siren, but that doesn't seal the deal. He was on Ross's shoulders at a party the night after, so last night. So yeah, look, I think that seals the deal. You don't go on your coach's shoulders and party and then you just leave the club. So I think he's pretty much staying. But yeah, look, as a Saints fan, we've got to be winning this game, surely. I think we'll get lots of confidence. We did get beat up by the D's, which was pretty disappointing considering that we had actually played some consistent footy against some really good sides and really been in the game. But against Melbourne, we weren't really in the game. But it was, I don't know, don't know how we pulled it off. We pulled over that D's deficit and we ended up winning the game, which was incredible. But I think I'm going to be going the Saints. We should be winning this game. North still have too many outs. Hopefully we'll get a few of our injuries back. So yeah, look, I'm going to be going the Saints. We should be winning this game. I don't think we'll win in a thrashing, even though a lot of people are expecting us to, because you know, we don't really have the ability to thrash sides, but I think we will win pretty decently here. I'm going to go the Saints to win this by 33 points under the roof at Marvel. Moving on to the next game now on the Sunday. This is the Sunday Arvo clash, and we do have the Cats taking on the Power down at GMHBA. We'll start off with the Cats. What an incredible performance against North Melbourne under the roof, just showing much maturity. But the Cats don't usually play their best footy at Marvel, but yeah, look, it was always going to be a Cats win. And Jezza kicking 11 goals, obviously. Yeah, look, he had a field day, and first player to kick 11 goals since 2014, so that was a massive milestone. And he could honestly kick for 100 goals in this season because the Cats, they're most likely to make top four. That's already an extra, like at least confirmed 2 games. So, and if they can make it to a grand final, that's going to be an extra 3. And even if they lose in the first week, that could be 4 games. So I honestly think he will maybe do it if he can pull it off. And he's coming up against the Power here, who really haven't been the strongest outfit. They've just been so inconsistent. One week they'll get thrashed and one week they'll show up. But yeah, look, their season's over. Obviously now the Power, that's the elephant. That's not an elephant in the room. But yeah, look, coming into this game, I mean, there's not really much I do need to say. The Power did win their last one against the Cats down here at GMHBA, but recent matchups say that the Cats have thrashed the Power. They won by 80 points in that elimination final. And I think they won by 79 or something earlier on in the year at the Adelaide Oval. So I honestly think that Jezza, he's in to at least kick 4 goals for me in this match here. But I'm going to be going the Cats in a bit of a thrashing here by 62 points at GMHBA. Moving over to the West now for the last game of round 21, we do have the Dockers taking on the Blues, and coming into this match, you know, we'll take the Dockers. They've just been in some incredible form. They've only lost 1 out of their last 10, I believe. So that's incredible form from the Dockers. The only issue they need now is to get their percentage up because they're not confirmed to make the 8 yet. Yes, they should be winning all their matches home, but that Bulldogs game is going to be the massive one in the last round, which will pretty much be the Bulldogs grand final. But yeah, look, their percentage is letting them down a bit. Fremantle, they could have easily won that game by more against West Coast if they had have kicked a little accurate, but they still won by 49. You take that win and you move on against the Blues here, and we'll get to the Blues, who were, I guess you could say, pretty disappointing against Carlton, considering it was Doherty's last game. I mean, they were alright for the last 3 quarters, but that first quarter was really just pathetic. The Hawks should have been up by at least 50, but I think they were up by 6 goals to just the 1 goal. And yeah, look, the game was done by quarter time. That was the game there. And yeah, look, coming into this match in the West here, the Dockers, they should really be winning this match. The Blues do seem to play all right at Optus, winning their last one against West Coast, and they do usually seem to play the Dockers pretty well, winning their last 3 games here. But I think this is another obvious one. Maybe you could see a Blues upset in some well, but nah, look, I think this should be a pretty straightforward tip. I'm going to be going the Dockers in a plucky win. I think they'll get the job done, but they'll be in control for most of the match. But Carlton, they'll hang around. I'm going to go the Dockers here by 23 points at Optus. So everyone, those are my tips for the round. Let me know your tips and predictions in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video.